So we're joined by Melissa Penton, Change Management Lead at OMERS. Melissa, thank you for joining us. How are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
So you've been a member of the Women in IT Canada community for a while now, a couple of years now, I believe. So with that in mind, how have you found your experience?
Yeah, the experience has been really amazing. I've actually been to, quite a few women in tech events, lots of different tech events, mainly here in Toronto, Canada, where I'm from, and I guess across Canada and some in the US. And I also, like I said, I've been to lots of women in tech, lots of tech events, lots of networking events. And I've also been a part of a lot of different communities, women communities, not specifically to tech, but in 2019, I went to my first Women in IT awards and summit here in Toronto. And it was just after, it was kind of when we were starting to come back from COVID and have, big in-person events. And I was nervous, like I'm sure everyone else was. How am I going to network? What am I going to say? How do I do this again? How do I be in person again? And I walked in that room and I only knew I'd met Tanya online. I knew a few other people, and I walked in the room and I felt so immediately welcomed. And I think I walked one person I didn't even know, and they smiled at me and said hello. And just walking in that room felt so warm, welcoming, supportive. And I went over to someone, and I met someone in line, and right away they were like, what do you do? What are you interested in? Let me think if I can connect you to anybody in the room, which is something that I take with me now everywhere that I go. Like, how wonderful to walk in a room, have someone approach you right away and introduce themselves, and then say, who can let me introduce you to a few people, so you immediately don't feel left out, nervous. So it's been a really amazing community, and we've just had the Women in IT Awards and Summit here in Toronto a few weeks ago. And again, it was the same vibe, the same feeling, even elevated this year. And I was so excited. We ended up bringing 11 people from our company. And I was just like, you are coming for the entire day and night. And we're going to introduce you to tons of people in the room and have an amazing experience, because I want you to experience how different and supportive and connected this community feels. So it's been really, truly an incredible experience, and I'm very grateful for.
They're a really great group day out then. Amazing.
They are. Yes, they are. They really are.
That's brilliant to hear, because we know the tech industry, collaboration is at the bedrock of innovation, right? Internal and external. So it's great to know that these events cultivate that.
Yeah, absolutely. If we think about future technologies that are coming, we are going to need collaboration across, physical land borders, across all areas, across all regions, across all genders, everything, to really elevate and be super innovative with the technology and the problems that we can solve for the future. And I just think that having more of that experience for people, and not just within your closed walls, if you work in an enterprise or a company, even if it's a small company or a startup, but to have that expand beyond these walls is truly something that we have to get right, I think, to have really incredible innovation for the future.
Now, onto your role, you lead change management, of course, at OMERS, Ontario pensions provider. So you're bound to have seen skills gaps challenge needing to be addressed, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say are the main keys to closing the digital skills gap across the workforce to really maintain that needed innovation?
Yeah. So I've worked in training before I was in change management. I've spent my whole career in training. And I've never played inside the box for training. I think that I love to have, especially with technology training, and I know there's obviously two versions of this. You could look at it from training very technical people on how to, the more technical side of technology, and then there's teaching business users how to use new technology. And one of the projects that I'm on right now is we're moving to a cloud platform for our finance systems. And so obviously there's some, people are scared of the change. What does this mean? How do I use new systems? All of these kinds of things. And then even, with the hot topic right now of artificial intelligence, I love learning about it. And I went to a seminar not too long ago, and it was very technical, and they were talking about all the trillions of ways they get data and, and train the models and all of that. And I was like, I was not the right person to be in that audience, but I do think that in some senses we have made technology this mystical, kind of intimidating, a little bit of an overwhelming thing. It's kind of out there in the ether, and you just, you get a new laptop or you get a new iPhone and you only do what you need to do on it. You don't go beyond that. And someone teaches you something, or you see a kid do something on a phone, swipe a certain way, or do something. I always love sitting behind young kids at events and watching them take photos, and I learn how to use my photos, my camera on my iPhone, things that I've had an iPhone for however long, and I still don't know how to fully use it. So I think that, even from this perspective, it's making this stuff not scary. Hearing people's stories. Here in Toronto, we have this amazing hospital called Sick Kids, and it it's got world-renowned innovation for children with different kinds of sicknesses, and they have a phenomenal marketing team that makes these really incredible videos that make you cry every time you see them. But they're talking a lot about future health technologies that are coming, and ways that they, one of the commercials that's out right now is about this thing that can go into your heart, and because they can predict that really early in your young years. And then later in the video, the boy is a teenager, and his heart stops. But because when he was a little boy, they put this technology inside his heart, that when that happened, they predicted that it would happen, and when it did happen, it pumped his heart back to life, and he came where he would have died before. And so how amazing is that? And imagine, so we look at that just as like, okay, that's so cool and it saved his life, but let's get more people into learning about how this technology works. How can we create it? Let's even make it, take that video to another level, where you're now educating people on how does this happen? How did we get here? How did we create it? So that we're not just learning about these things from a really far away perspective, but more totally relevant to our lives, and being embedded with information. There's so much junk out there on the internet. I think it's time that we started having information that helps and propels us forward. We just need to not simplify it. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. I think we have to be innovative with the way that we're training people and getting them into these, into all of these fields, but more specifically tech. We need to stop mystifying. And actually, I have one more point on that. I saw a marketing ad the other day, and it said AI versus IT admins. And I thought, isn't that interesting? You've now just, through this marketing, and I get what they're trying to do, obviously, but it's not AI versus, it's IT admin with AI, supporting AI. So I think we also have to just watch the way we're talking about a lot of this stuff. So it's not we're not creating stories about it that aren't true.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that ties into sort of the need to not just jump on a hype just for the sake of it as well, to really,
Totally.
but rather focus on the challenges that people are having with technology and zone in on them and try and overcome those challenges from a business standpoint as well as a societal standpoint, right? Do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, totally. And imagine like, you're a young scientist and you would love to solve the plastic problem in the oceans. And if you could look at technology as a way to obviously like help you do that and not so complicated and scary, you might get to that solution to solve that problem a lot faster if we make this stuff much more accessible and embedded into what we're putting out into the world, so that people can digest it a lot easier and see and always be thinking about a solution and how can we get there. Anything is possible, right? We just have to have that attitude, that mindset to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not a recruiter.
Sure.
I'm not a hiring manager. But I do know that if there's a will, there's a way. And I think that's part of it, is you've got to have the will to get all the applications, all the diversity, in front of you when you're hiring, so that you can truly see all the different perspectives and make bold choices for your business based on that. Companies are still seeing a very gray array of resumes in front of them, and then they'll say things like, no one applied, or there just aren't the people out there, or whatever the different kind of excuses are. And I think that is like, we really have to make an effort to go above and beyond. And if you're seeing and also calling out your trends, if you're noticing that white men are applying to a particular, you're looking for a data scientist, let's say, and you notice that your resumes, I mean, you can make some pretty good assumptions based off of names, schooling, where they're coming from school. And if you don't have any diversity in there in those papers, you're not going to have a diverse workforce and those perspectives in the room. So I think it really starts with kind of looking at just, what's your current state? Where are you today? What resumes are coming in? And then are you making an effort to go out and above and beyond? And it's the same kind of, I look at it, when I go to even networking events, I want to talk to someone in the room that I wouldn't normally talk to. And I know by doing that, I'm going to expand my own network to be diverse. Because yes, it really does start with the hiring manager and the recruitment team in a company. And even here at my company, our Women in Tech employee resource group has done a ton of work outside of our organization to get people to apply. And then we just realize once they get to the door, it's hands off for us. So we want to make sure that we're getting as many people as possible from lots of diverse backgrounds coming and applying. And then it needs to go through that chain of then the recruiter and then the hiring manager. And I think that hiring managers consistently need bias training, all these diversity, equity, inclusion training that companies are able to offer their employees. We need it consistently. It's not you did the diversity training, and now you're good to go. No, you need more and more and more and more and more of it. So I think, it's a consistent effort.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an ongoing journey. And
yes,
it's like you said earlier, not working in one box, really going out there. And I've spoken to other companies that have gone out to like jobs fairs and made and also initiated their own recruiting events with
Yeah. Yeah. And I think even on that note, like, look at, are you going to the same universities? Why do you do that? Why is that a thing that you do? Because then you know you're going to get the same group of people from, you know, those universities. And I've spoken with quite a lot of universities, even on their own recruitment and how they get people to school. Because we have a lot of universities here in Ontario and in the city that even recognize like they have a problem because they're getting the same students that apply and accepted into their program. So how do we go out and above and beyond to make sure that all have accessible access to getting into a chance, like getting into our schools, having a chance? And then how, when they're in our schools, how do we ensure that we continue to help them? So that goes back to your journey thing, right? It's just a continuous journey. If you mean, you could almost look at yourself today and then go back a couple steps and keep going back and like, okay, if it, you know, here's where I am. And then if I need a hiring manager who has this kind of thought. And then we need schools that have the same kind of thought. And then we need and you could just keep going on it.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now once you have that diverse talent in the organization, you need to retain them through a diverse, equitable and inclusive culture. It's ongoing. What advice would you give to tech leaders on continuously cultivating a culture?
For me, I see two things. I see one, listening. And I think, just as I just said, you know, I think hiring managers consistently need training on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Obviously, I think leaders need the same thing. And I think that leaders also need active listening training. I think they can forget. We can all forget. You can get into your own cycles like bias, right? It always creeps back in. You think you've mastered it, and then you turn around and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I still you know, went out and did the same thing. Just as an example from the Women in IT event that was here in Toronto a few weeks ago, they had 3 entrepreneurs on stage to do a pitch, and one of them was a deaf woman who had created an app called Listenin, and it was for deaf people because they actually can't hear fire alarms inside buildings. And, you know, here I am, very privileged and not deaf, and I didn't even think that was a thing. And, you know, somebody said, oh, well, wouldn't the lights flash? And I said, I don't know. Does every building, when their fire alarm goes off, do they have lights that flash so a deaf person could know? These are all things that we make assumptions about. And if we're not actively listening and learning, then we're never going to be inclusive of all the people. And many leaders have always said this, but, you know, surround yourself with the people who do things better than you do. And you, because you are in the position that yes, listen, but then also there's somebody in your team that will listen better than you. So surround yourself with those people. And I think generally you find those people, you know, they're the people that are involved in employee resource groups. They're the people that always go above and beyond to care for their colleagues. They're the people that say, you know, let's take care of each other or check in on each other. Or those people you want to surround yourself with so that you can truly hear. And they're usually the people that are on the ground, right? They're the people that can come back to you and say, hey, listen, you know what, we feel that we're not being diverse, or we feel like we're only celebrating a certain particular kinds of holidays. We're not being inclusive of all the holidays, or whatever the thing may be. And then you can work together with those people to create equitable, inclusive culture in your company. But, you know, one leader can't do it. Obviously, the leader needs to surround themselves with those people, and then always taking action. You can't just put those people around you and then not do anything about it. You can't just listen and not do anything about it. There always needs to be action on the other side.
Well, while I was asking that last question in my head, I was thinking there's a point to be made about the language that we use to describe underrepresented people, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Instead of disabled, you could say it would be preferable to say something along the lines of physically impaired. Or...
Yeah, we say here at our company, we say diverse abilities, right? We all have abilities, and some of them are more diverse than others. And I think that's a really great way to approach it, and also to give you a new perspective that we take things for granted. Like I was saying with the Listen app, I was like, I love those moments though, where I'm kind of shook again, like, oh yeah, Melissa, you don't have that. So the systems that are in place here to protect you from a fire are set for you, but there are other people who that does not serve. And so how do we serve those people? How do we make sure that we're all protected, we're all taken care of, consistently taking care of our community? So, the things that are happening in the world right now, are we making sure that our colleagues that that's truly deeply affecting feel supported? Do they have the support that they need to and I mean, that's, mental, emotional support to show up every day and continue to at least thrive in the life that they have, whether, if it's here in our country, in our workplace, but are they taken care of? Because these are things that we can't see. We see it on the news, and then we assume that's so far away that doesn't affect us, but we have people that sit right beside you that actually might be affected by deeply affected by what's going on around the world. And so, you don't have to dig into it. You can just make sure that the person knows they have resources available to them, and that you're there to support them if they need anything. It's like mindfulness in the workplace. How do we consistently stay present when you're bouncing from meeting to meeting? You're on Zoom, you're in person, you're moving around, you've got to commute, you've got to do all these things. In Toronto, we have something called The Path. It's this underground like tunnel shopping thing that goes from our GO train station up to the office buildings. And there's this ongoing joke that it's like salmon swimming, in the morning, it's like salmon swimming upstream, and at night it's salmon swimming downstream. And you're screwed if you're going the other opposite direction, because there's just so many people you can barely get through. But if you look at those people walking in the hallway, we all look like, like salmon. We're just completely zoned out. Some people have their headphones on. Not a lot of people are smiling. So I would love to even change that somehow and have people just fully be present as you're, doing our normal things that we do in our day-to-day lives. Be more mindful, be present.
Sure. I love that metaphor, by the way. You could also use an ostrich, head in the sand.
Right? Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So yeah. Just from a women in technology perspective, I think just championing each other. We've talked about a couple of good things on our talk today, but like being mindful and present and supportive and building communities, and just women, that idea that, and there was a lot of this at the summit that we had here, but if there's no room at the table, build your own darn table. Always have a chair beside you to bring someone in, lift as you rise consistently. We should always be doing that, and just being supportive of each other always. And there was a woman at our awards night that hosted it, and I can't remember what her last name is. Her first name is Sarah, and she had this acronym called FROG, and you want to consistently frog people, and it stands for Forever Recognize Others' Greatness. And I love that. And I think if I could leave you with an image, let it be a frog. and just always lifting each other up, because we need that now more than ever before. So Go be froggy, Erin.
Don't be a salmon, be a frog.
Don't be a salmon. Yes, exactly. Be a frog.
I think that's an amazing point to end on. Melissa, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck again to you and the team at OMERS.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.